Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. We are here to preview, and I will be giving my picks for UFC Fight Night, Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria. We are going to start at the very bottom of the card, as per usual, and work our way up. I am going to try and get through the earlier fights as quickly as I can, because I do actually have quite a bit to say on this main event. I think it's extremely interesting, and it is probably the only interesting fight on this card. I mean, honestly, this card does have the potential to be a sleeper card, but if you just look at the matchups on paper, everybody is excited about Josh Emmett and Ilia Topuria, and I bet you the vast majority of people couldn't name 3 other fights that are on this card. The UFC's website, as per usual, has moved stuff around for whatever reason, so I'm gonna go off of their websites, but just bear with me if I need to scroll through my notes a little bit, because I did take my notes just the other day and the orders of the fights were completely different. So before we get into it, like and sub, greatly appreciate it. Let's get right to it. First fight of the night is now Cody Brundage versus Cedric Dumas. In Cedric Dumas's debut, I picked him, and that was a mistake. He looked very good on the Contender Series, but that seems to be the case with a lot of guys. And then once they get a step up in competition, they get exposed. And that's absolutely what happened to Cedric Dumas. He was good and looked okay for a couple of minutes. After that, he was gassed. His striking looked very subpar, which is weird because it looked great in his Contender Series debut. It's not very sophisticated. Once he's a little bit tired, you can see all the flaws in his technique. You can see that he's not really setting things up. He's just kind of throwing to throw, and he had absolutely zero ability on the ground whatsoever. Cody Brundage is a very good wrestler. I picked him to beat Rodolfo Vieira, and it almost went exactly how I said it would. I said that Cody Brundage, if he hurts Rodolfo Vieira, he needs to not go to the ground with him right away. He needs to let him stand back up, and maybe after you've dropped him a couple of times, then go to the ground with him. Instead of doing that, Cody Brundage did the most low fight IQ thing you could possibly do, and he jumped on Rodolfo Vieira once he hurt him. He ended up getting submitted in that fight, but I am going to trust him to beat Cedric Dumas, because I just don't think Cedric Dumas really has anything for him, honestly. Like, Cody Brundage has a pretty decent chin. He might have to avoid a couple big shots in the opening minute, but I feel as though he's going to be able to take him down and implement his will and probably ground and pound Cedric Dumas out. Cedric Dumas literally has zero ground game whatsoever, and we saw that in his UFC debut. So I am going to be going with Cody Brundage to get the job done. All right, next fight is TAIRA versus Kleydson Rodrigues. This is a good fight. TAIRA, pardon me, sounds like a fucking samurai name. Then TAIRA, he has looked phenomenal in all of his UFC fights. He's got 2 finishes out of the 3 wins. He's 2 of them by submission. He submitted CJ Vergara, who you have to go back to 2018 to see him losing by submission. He's only lost to Ode Osborne since that one submission loss in 2018, and that was by decision. I know MMA math doesn't work, obviously, but you look at the way that TAIRA handled CJ Vergara, and then you look at how Kleydson Rodrigues lost a split decision to him. Whether or not it was controversial, that means it was a close enough fight that it could have been scored either way. And Kleydson Rodrigues does look phenomenal from time to time, but I just think that TAIRA is levels above, or at least a level above right now. As a young prospect, he is phenomenal, and it's going to be very exciting to see him rise up through the ranks. He's good, man. He looks very good, especially on the ground, and I think that he's going to be able to potentially submit Kleydson Rodrigues, but Kleidson's never been submitted. You know what I mean? And some of the guys that TAIRA has fought since he's been in the UFC have been, right? Kleydson Rodrigues obviously has some jiu-jitsu capabilities on the ground, but TAIRA just seems to, I don't know, man. He's good. I think he'll be able to get the job done. Whether or not he gets a submission is up in the air, but I do think he will be getting the job done. Next fight is Jamal Emmers versus Jack Jenkins. I'm going to be going with the underdog, Jack Jenkins here. Okay, first of all, I love Australians for whatever reason. Dude, he's on an 8-fight win streak, 5 of which have come by finish. He hasn't lost in over 5 years. He has never been KO'd. He's only been subbed. Emmers has been, a little on and off for the last 3 years. He's 2-2 in his last 4. To be fair to him, those losses did come to Giga Chikadze and Sabatini, who we just saw perform fantastically last weekend. So they're both pretty good, you know what I mean? He's a little bit older. I don't know, man. Half of his wins are by KO. He hasn't gotten one since 2019. So it seems that either, you know, the timing, the reflexes, and all of that that come with being able to land the KO shot, because everybody says like power's last thing to go or whatever. It seems like the other stuff has gone, and then he can't find that KO shot. Right, that's 4 years. You know what I mean? The Aussies have been on an absolute fucking tear lately, and I'm gonna trust in Jack Jenkins to get this one done. I don't know why he's such a big underdog, but I guess we'll see. Especially if you look at their current like streaks, like Jamal Emmer's career on Tapology, if you go look over the last couple of years, is like red green red green red green, whereas Jack Jenkins, as I said, 8-fight win streak. So I'm going with Jack Jenkins to get the job done. Underdog pick. Moving on up, Trevor Peek versus Chepe Mariscal, I think is how you say his name. Okay, I love Trevor Peek. He's fun to watch for sure. Man, he only wins by KO, dude. All eight in a row by KO. He has yet to enter the third round in his pro MMA career, but he has in his amateur career. So at the very least, we know that he's capable of going a little bit longer. I think there was even a fight in which he went to the fourth round. Yeah, he got a KO in the fourth round. So he is capable of fighting longer. His power holds. He's not gassing if he's knocking somebody out in the fourth round. Mariscal, on the other hand, making his UFC debut. He also likes to get the job done by KO, so I would imagine this is going to be a fun fucking fight. If it's Trevor Peek, how could it fucking not be, dude, right? He's lost to some guys that are in the UFC right now, like Steve Garcia, who's been pretty successful. He did get finished in that one, but he's also got a win over Yusuf Zalal back in 2019, pre-UFC. He's got a win over Pat Sabatini in 2018, which has aged incredibly well since then. This is hard to pick. Mariscal has been KO'd 3 times in his pro career. He has an even more extensive amateur career than Peek. So while this is his UFC debut, he's actually got more fights and more experience. And he's fought a bunch of recognizable UFC names. If you go look pre-UFC, like he's fought a bunch of dudes. You know what I mean? I am going to be going with Mariscal here, the debut guy. Trevor Peek, fun to watch, obviously has tremendous KO power. Technique's not the best, you know what I mean? Doing hammer fists and shit like that. I mean, hey, if it works, it works. Whatever, all good, but I just think that Mariscal is going to be able to get the job done. I have a feeling Trevor Peek is going to find a ceiling. I think he's going to be one of those, like, just fun fighters to open up a card or something like that. You know, I don't know that he's going to make it to championship status or even maybe, like, top 15, top 10, but I do think that Mariscal, he's got more experience overall. He's got a pretty extensive amateur career, and I think he's going to be able to avoid the KO blows from Trevor Peek and maybe find a submission. Yeah, Mariscal. Moving on up, dude. Zhalgas Zhumagulov versus Joshua Van. Okay, dude, let me find this in my notes here because they have moved stuff around slightly. Here we go. Zhalgas Zhumagulov, okay? He has the worst, but at the same time, the most fucking Giga Chad haircut I have ever seen of all time. He's got a legitimate female type record, though, if you look at it right. He's lost 5 of his last 6, pardon me, losing to Paiva, who is not that good, right? We saw, pardon me, Sean O'Malley deal with him quite easily. The other ones, to better competition for sure, Manel Kape, Jeff Molina, okay, which is probably very upsetting to a Muslim man like Zhalgas. All right, losing to a guy that has a tape of him openly leaked on the internet of him sucking dick. That's haram, and he lost to that, so he's probably not too... Maybe that was the beginning of the end for his career. He was just too depressed to be able to deal with that after. And then Charles Johnson, so decent guys, but he is losing pretty consistently as of late. Joshua Van making his UFC debut, young as fuck, 21 years old if I'm not mistaken. Okay, he had a lot of success in Fury FC, good mix of KOs and sub wins, 0 decision victories whatsoever. He always gets the job done by finish. He hasn't fought anybody nearly close to the level of a Manel Kape, of a Jeff Molina, or anything like that. But the last time Zhalgas finished anyone was in 2017. That was 6 years ago. And it was against similar level competition that this guy's been fighting, if you go look at his record. So, you know, the kind of guys that Joshua Van is running through are the kind of guys that Zhalgas Zhumagulov was able to finish. So I just think that... I kind of think Zhumagulov is done. I'm not sure why he is still fighting. He's, I mean, 5 of 6, dude. That's like... that. you know, aside from being a female fighter, you typically get cut after some shit like that. So I'm gonna go with the young, hungry 21-year-old to get her done. Hopefully, ZHUMAGULOV can retire to go live with his 4 wives, and 2 of which are probably his cousins. But anyways, we're gonna move on up to the next fight. Tabitha Ricci versus Jillian Robertson, another underdog pick, barely an underdog, plus 110. I'm going to be going with Jillian Robertson. Reason being, I need to start trusting in my fellow Canadians. They proved me wrong. They showed me up on the Vancouver card, 6-0. Jillian Robertson seems to have issues when everybody knows what her MO is, right? She wants to grapple, she wants to strangle you, she wants to break your arm, whatever the fuck she wants to do. She wants to get a submission. She only seems to lose to girls who are like very high level. Like I don't know, man. She's been looking pretty good as of late. Her record is not great. She's a little older, obviously. Tabitha Ricci, younger, has a way better record overall. But Jillian Robertson has fought a ton of fucking girls at the UFC level as well. So she gets in trouble, as I was saying, when she grapples girls that are better grapplers, which sometimes happens. But you know, it's fucking crazy. She's only 28 years old, and I know that her record's not massive, but she's just been around for so long. You know what I mean? And as I said, she's looking pretty good lately. Sorry, I was just reading something there. I think Jillian Robertson's gonna get the job done. I think she probably gets it done by submission, handing Tabitha Ricci her first submission loss of her career. I can't be picking against Canadians after they pulled off a 6-0 on the Vancouver card. So moving on up now to Mateusz Rebecki versus Loic Radzhabov. All right. Fuck. This is a tricky one too. I'm just going to read out what I wrote here. I said, so all right, initially I wanted to pick Rebecki. And I know that MMA math doesn't work, but bro, Chase Hooper beat Nick Fiore. Dude, I did full fucking MMA math here. I apologize. This is some casual behavior. Chase Hooper beat Nick Fiore better than Rebecki did, and that's been his only UFC fight so far. And before the UFC, he had 8 KOs, 6 subs, and 2 decisions. You see this with a bunch of dudes from the Contender Series or whatever. Their finishing rate just drops off. Now, I mean, to be fair, he's only had 1 fight, so it's not like his entire finishing rate has dropped off or anything like that, but you know, maybe he'll go on to get more. But it is crazy seeing what Chase Hooper was able to do to Nick Fiore. Right, or Nick Fiore, however you say his name, compared to Mateusz Rebecki, who had quite a bit of hype on him. This is a tricky one to pick. Okay, Loic Radzhabov has a win over Esteban Ribovics, who was undefeated at the time. He did come from that ridiculous Samurai Fight House bullshit, which is where that Prado dude came from. He did get a KO on the Contender Series also, but then he lost his debut. It's kind of a tricky one, man. Both guys were extremely successful outside of the UFC. Rebecki hasn't lost in 9 years. I'm going to go with Rebecki, but I think he only gets it done by decision, pardon me. Jesus fucking Christ, my tongue ain't working. That is crazy, though. I know that's some bullshit MMA math, but bro, like Chase Hooper ain't supposed to be beating the brakes off of you in the way that he did to Nick Fiore. Like, that's something that we would have expected Rebecki to do, as opposed to Chase Hooper. But anyways, I'm gonna pick Mateusz Rebecki to get the job done by decision. All right, moving on up. Hopefully they've kept the same order. Randy Brown versus Wellington Turner. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I want to say about this. I'm going Randy Brown, but I'll tell you what, dude. I would never bet on Randy. The line has closed. He was a minus 250 when I wrote these notes. He's now a minus 225. I would not bet on him at that number. He's just, I don't find him to be reliable enough. Wellington Turner, or Turman, pardon me, absolutely not fucking reliable, but hey, anyways, dude, Randy Brown, probably, who knows how, you know what I mean, but that's my pick. Moving on up. Neil Magny versus Philip Rowe, or Phil Rowe. All right, let's see where this fucking notes are, because they moved this one too. I'm going to go with Neil Magny. I'm going with Neil Magny. I hope I can trust in him still. I don't know what the fuck happened with that Gilbert Burns fight. We haven't seen him dominated on the ground quite like that. You know what I mean? He even put up more of a fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Him and Chiesa had a hard 5-round fight. You know what I mean? And while Chiesa was able to basically dominate him on the ground in a lot of those situations, Gilbert Burns just kind of fucking handled him. Like, I don't know what happened there. That was a strange one, man. So you need like a big, strong guy applying top pressure to deal with Neil Magny on the ground. I always think of fucking Magby. Does anybody know the first version of Magmar in Pokemon? Okay, that's what Neil Magny reminds me of. But anyways, dude. This was something I thought was interesting also. Okay, Neil Magny has one meaning O-N-E, grappling match, pro grappling match that he lost. Phil Rowe, on the other hand, for some reason, has taken like 6 pro grappling matches, okay, during his UFC career, and he has lost all 6 of them. That does not give me a whole lot of faith in him on the ground, okay? He's 3-1 in the UFC so far, but he has not fought the best competition. Neil Magny has fought literally the best guys, fucking everybody. He's been around forever. You have to go back all the way to 2013 to see him lose 2 in a row. That's another thing. Neil Magny is phenomenal at bouncing back. You know what I mean? That was a decade ago. You see him have a 2-fight skid, whereas ever since then it's always 1, and then he's able to get a win after that. So even after, or pardon me, in between the Shavkat and Burns fight, he was able to get a bounce back win. So I think I'm going to trust him, Neil Magny, to get the job done. I almost called him Magby again, dude, okay? I just feel like you need a certain level of grappling. And he's so long and tricky to deal with also. And Phil Rowe, dude, I don't know what he just has not impressed me a whole lot. Now, maybe he'll go out there and fucking starch the dude, but I just see Magny being able to control him from top position. Moving on up, we are now on the main card. This is a fight I'm actually excited for. I've been talking about Brendan Allen quite a bit lately because I think that they should have given him somebody ranked ahead of him, right, to get some new blood into the middleweight division, but they did not do that. They gave him an unranked opponent in Bruno Silva, who just had a phenomenal KO victory over Brad Tavares, showing us that he is still there. I am pretty high on Brendan Allen as of late, though, right? He hasn't lost since 2021 to Chris Curtis. He's won 4 in a row and capped that off with submitting Andre Muniz, which nobody thought he was going to do, okay? Before that, Chris Curtis lost. He lost to Sean Strickland in 2020. And then in 2018 and 2017 to Fluffy and Eric Anders. So he's not ever losing to bad guys. You know what I mean? He never loses to bums. And he's pretty well-rounded. His striking is not the greatest, but his grappling is pretty good, especially from top. Bruno Silva, not as old as he looks, right? And his career is longer than what you would think his age is, but... and honestly, dude, he has not been in the UFC for that long. Since being in the UFC, he's only lost to Pereira and Mearshart. And he was the only guy that on Alex Pereira's rise to the title fight with Israel Adesanya who didn't get KO'd. But then Mearshart was able to drop him for some reason, so it's a little inconsistent, okay? He is 33 years old. So, I mean, he looks 50, if we're being honest. But either way, he has 20 KO victories, okay? He's only been in the UFC for 6 fights and only lost those 2 that I mentioned. All of his victories in the UFC have been by KO or TKO. He has lost by submission 6 times, though. This is why I'm going with Brendan Allen. I feel as though Brendan Allen will be able to take him down, time a big shot from Bruno Silva, shoot under it, take him down, and I think that he's going to be able to get a arm triangle or something of that sort, like a top pressure type submission. So I'm going to be going Brendan Allen by submission. He is a almost 2-1 favorite, so this is not the craziest pick. Moving on up, David Onama to get versus Gabriel Santos. Sorry. Let's find this one. All right. Both these guys had close decision losses, pardon me, the last time out. Santos to Lerone Murphy, which, if I'm not mistaken, that was on the Edwards-Usman trilogy, and I'm pretty sure I thought that he won that fight because it was against Lerone Murphy, and that was a hometown shit. I can't remember if that's what it was, or I felt like there was some controversy there, but either way. Onama lost to Nate Landwehr. Okay, Onama's gotten 2 finishes since he's been in the UFC so far against Benitez, who kicks hard as fuck. Okay, Mowgli, some of the best leg kicks ever, and he'll split his shin open, and he doesn't give a fuck. He'll keep kicking you. He's a savage. Okay, and Garrett Armfield, who was making his UFC debut. Santos lost his debut to Murphy, but before that had success in LFA against some good guys, man. head kick to ground and pound KO, and a liver punch to ground and pound KO. He's got some good names on his record, and to be fair, dude, Lerone Murphy is a pretty tough guy for a debut, if we're being honest. So, and if we look at Lerone Murphy, I would argue that he's better, technically, and whatever. But I think that he's better than all of Onama's opponents. So, I think that Santos has fought the better quality competition. I don't see this fight going to a decision. I'm going to go with Santos, though, to get the job done. He's never been finished ever. And to be fair, neither has Onama. But I just think that the level of competition will be the difference here. I think that Santos will be more experienced just because he's fought much better guys. Anyways, moving on up. Next fight, Austin Lane versus Justin Tafa. I'm going to go in with Justin Tafa here. I need to find these in my notes once more. I apologize. This is absolutely frustrating. They fucking moved everything around, okay? Oh, one sec. Here we go. Okay, so something that's crazy, dude. Despite Justin Tafa's fight style, he has only ever been KO'd once. And I know that he doesn't have the craziest, longest record, but he is a heavyweight. So, unlike most heavyweights, because he can kickbox, I think this is why he hasn't been KO'd more, right? Because he goes in there and he fucking is coming in there to knock you out. And he does leave openings from time to time, but he also KO'd the GOAT, Parker Porter. So how could you ever pick against Justin Tafa after something like that? Okay. The shitty thing is that the guy that KO'd him was Yorgan De Castro, and that is fucking unforgivable. Austin Lane making his debut and is a favorite, which is kind of crazy, but he's got more experience than Tafa, amateur and professional. But this motherfucker, even more, what did I say? Unforgivable. Even more unforgivable. This guy got knocked out by Greg Hardy back when it was Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, not just like the Contender Series in the earlier seasons. And so this motherfucker is solely responsible for us having to deal with that retard doing the fucking Fortnite dance after he beat bums at heavyweight. Yeah? So fuck Austin Lane. Okay, I'm going with Justin Tafa, and I hope that he cracks him with a fucking left hook, because if you get knocked out by Greg Hardy, man, and I know that Greg Hardy beat Yorgan De Castro, but I don't give a fuck. Okay? You cannot, Austin Lane is the guy responsible for us having to deal with Greg Hardy for all those, I don't know, what was it, a year and a half, 2 years, doing the stupid shit. God, I couldn't stand him. I'm so glad that he's gone, and I hope that Austin Lane finally gets some retribution for that. Or not retribution, but some punishment. Either way, moving on up. Co-main event. Time for some fucking slander. Amanda Ribas versus Maycee Barber. If you've watched my channel previously or regularly or anything like that, or at least a fight night where Maycee Barber was a part of it, you will know that I fucking hate this lady. I hate her. I think she might be my least favorite fighter on the entire roster, male or female, if I'm being brutally honest. I find her to be extremely cringe, and I think that she has earned herself a Trailer Park Boys edit, because she said that Juliana Pena was being cringe, and while she was, and I absolutely agree with that, somebody as cringe as Maycee Barber can't be calling that shit out. Okay, you need somebody who's not cringe to call out cringe. But now let's get to the actual fight part of it, because that's just, I just can't stand this lady. So maybe I am a little shaded or clouded by my hatred. Amanda Ribas looked pretty good her last time out. She definitely made some improvements in her striking. So I'm going to trust her to get the job done, because unlike Maycee Barber, she's not throwing full head kicks, full hooks, full uppercuts, full 1-2s from 10 fucking feet away like some Michelle Waters, some shit, key on as if she's doing a goddamn thing. Okay? The only problem is Amanda Ribas needs to finish her. Please don't let me down. Finish this fucking half fetal alcohol syndrome, half Down syndrome fucking Maycee Barber, please. Dude, if she doesn't finish her, Maycee Barber's going to get gifted another decision. Okay? She will be. She's had 2 already that were extremely questionable, pardon me, and extremely controversial, and I think she lost both of them. I think she lost to Amanda Lee, or Andrea Lee, pardon me, and I think that she lost to Miranda Maverick. So, I don't get it, man. Either she might need glasses. Her depth perception is fucked, dude. If I was her, if I was a if nobody knew who Macy Barber was, nobody knew her name, nobody knew she fought for the UFC. If she was just a regular girl that walked into your kickboxing gym, and you were a coach, you would pull her aside and you would say, "Excuse me, miss, do you need glasses? Hey, you should go to the optometrist because I think that your depth perception is way off because you just threw that head kick." And your opponent was literally 15 feet away from you. Why did you fucking do that? She doesn't understand the concept of a feint or a fake. She just throws shots. Fucking can't stand it. Please, everybody, keep Amanda Ribas in your prayers. Let's hope for a finish. Because if not, Macy Barber will get gifted a decision. And it will infuriate me. Moving on up to the main event. Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria, the fight we are all here to talk about now. I have a lot to say about this fight, honestly. And I'm going to start with the notes that I wrote just this morning. I had written a bunch of notes, but then I thought of some other shit. So I'm going to be going with Ilia Topuria. But I feel like I'm echoing. Sorry, this room is hollow because I've been moving. Everything's in boxes. In many ways, Ilia Topuria is kind of like a more refined, younger version of a Josh Emmett, okay? I didn't think Josh Emmett should have been fighting for an interim title. You know what I mean? I don't find him to be that good, if I'm being honest. I think that a couple of his wins over top contenders have been kind of him getting the good end of a shit decision. But here's some things that I will say, because I don't think that this is like a foregone conclusion by any stretch of the imagination. Ilia Topuria is extremely offensively minded, and sometimes to the detriment of his defense, okay? He throws massive shots, big overhands, big hooks, and when one lands, he doesn't want to just pull his hand back and reset, okay? And we saw this cause problems for him, or a problem for him one time against Jai Herbert, right? He stepped in through a huge overhand right that landed on the chin of Jai Herbert. Instead of pulling his hand back and resetting, right, and getting out of counter range, what he did was land the overhand, go to throw a left hook, and he pulled his right hand back down to his waist. Or his elbow was like tucked on his waist. His fist was at his chest. Before his left hook landed, Jai Herbert fucking beautifully got his left leg up and head kicked him clean. Beautiful shit. It was beautiful from Jai Herbert. And Josh Emmett's not going to be doing that, right? Josh Emmett's not going to be throwing up head kicks on a fucking dime like that, because they're very similar in stature, their height, the frame, all of it. And Jai Herbert's a longer, lankier guy who uses a lot of kicks. Josh Emmett doesn't typically use a lot of kicks. But that same issue could arise with Josh Emmett countering with a big right hand. Right? If Ilia Topuria, because he's confident in his power, and he should be, to be fair, if he throws a big overhand and he wants to land more, he doesn't pull it back here, he pulls it back here, and then he goes to throw the left hook. That could cause problems for him. He likes to hang out in the pocket a little too long. When Jai Herbert landed that head kick, they were not at kicking distance, right? Ilia Topuria had just landed a huge shot on him. They were in close range. So if the opening for a head kick is there on the right side of Ilia Topuria, well, then the opening for a big right-hand counter, or pardon me, left-hand counter, left hook counter from Josh Emmett is also available. You know, that was the only time he's been knocked down in his career, to be fair. So, you know, besides that, he's pretty sound defensively. His strikes landed per minute are more than strikes absorbed per minute, whereas for Josh Emmett, it's actually in the red. His absorbed per minute are a little bit higher than his landing. He does land more per minute than Topuria, but he takes more damage also. Now, Josh Emmett has knocked down a ton of fucking guys, okay? After his first 3 fights in the UFC, he has knocked down every single opponent at least once, except for his last 2. Calvin Kattar and Yair Rodriguez. And I think that there's good reasons for both of those. Calvin Kattar, much like a bunch of the other guys at the New England cartel, like Rob Font, guys like that, phenomenal chins, very hard to drop, very hard to put away. Okay, we've seen that with Rob Font, getting the fucking brakes beaten off of him by Marlon Chito Vera. He did get knocked down, but sorry, my nose was fucked there. But he wasn't finished, right? So he's tough as nails. So was Calvin Kattar, and Yair Rodriguez, who for a large portion of that fight was fighting at kicking distance for him, and he's much longer than Josh Emmett. So when Josh Emmett was able to crack on him, Yair was kind of like already leaning back. So he's not taking the full brunt of it, right? But he's knocked guys down like fucking Jeremy Stephens, and yes, Jeremy Stephens KO'd him. He knocked down Dan Ige, who has a phenomenal fucking chin. He knocked down Shane Burgos twice. He knocked down, who the fuck was it? I've got it written in my notes here somewhere. Jeremy Stephens, he knocked down Mirsad Bektik, he knocked down Ricardo Lamas, and he knocked down Felipe Ariantes, who the fuck is that guy? 4 times. Okay? He's got savage power. I would argue he's more powerful than anybody Ilia Topuria has fought in his UFC career. You know, Topuria, on the other hand, he's knocked down 3 out of the 5 opponents. He knocked down Damon Jackson, he knocked down Jai Herbert, and he knocked down Bryce Mitchell. And he only got knocked down that one time. And I think that the only guy to knock down Josh Emmett was actually Jeremy Stephens, who ended up finishing him. But, so Josh Emmett has a pretty underrated chin, in my opinion, okay? The difference, though, also, they've taken Josh Emmett has taken way more damage than Ilia Topuria, right? The Burgos fight, the Kattar fight, the Ige fight, all of these were wars. He took a ton of damage against Yair Rodriguez. It's just like, fuck, man. Like, he's old, and realistically like, Ilia Topuria is very good, and he's on the come up. So, like, logic would say, yeah, Topuria is gonna fuck this old guy up. You know what I mean? But there is a world that is out there somewhere where Josh Emmett fucking KOs Ilia Topuria, who we have seen get himself in trouble with being overzealous. Like, Bryce Mitchell was tagging him. I know he beat the fuck out of Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell was tagging him a couple times, you know what I mean? Was able to tag him multiple times. So, I don't know why I just repeated that 3 times like fucking Michael Bisping, just slightly different every time. I apologize for that. But, you know, if Ilia Topuria wants to win, he's got to fight a little bit smarter, because this guy Josh Emmett doesn't throw like Bryce Mitchell. You know what I mean? Bryce Mitchell doesn't have a whole lot of pop on his shots. Josh Emmett does. So, you know, even if he mixes in Josh Emmett could potentially mix in a takedown, land an overhand right. Ilia Topuria's got very good takedown defense, very good grappling defense, very good grappling in general. I think that his submission grappling, offensive grappling, is probably better than Josh Emmett's. Josh Emmett's got decent control with guys that are similarly sized to him, right? But we saw him get triangled by Yair. Yair's got long legs. Topuria does not have the same kind of lankiness that Yair Rodriguez does, but, you know, most people are picking Topuria, and there's good reason for that, right? He's a minus 325. I tell you what, dude, I don't typically bet on fights anyways, and I am picking Ilia Topuria, but, like, plus 275 for a guy who has fought all of the best competition that the featherweight division has to offer, aside from Max Holloway and Volkanovski, because he wasn't quite able to get there. But you look at the list of names that this guy's fought, and even the list of names that he's got wins over. I mean, fucking Christ, dude. Whereas Ilia Topuria, Jai Herbert, and Bryce Mitchell, you know what I mean? Those are his best wins. And Bryce Mitchell looked good up until that fight, like in previous fights. Hit my fucking... Dude, I almost went the whole time without doing it, and I did it. Either way, Bryce Mitchell had looked very good up until the Ilia Topuria fight, and then he looked like shit. He got the fuck beaten out of him. But these guys are not comparable to the guys that Josh Emmett has fought. You know, Josh Emmett, in my opinion, is a massive live underdog here. But I think the safe pick is Ilia Topuria, and I'm not making this pick for betting purposes. I'm making this pick to hopefully get a correct pick in the main event. So I'm going to be going with Ilia Topuria. I don't know, like, Josh Emmett's only been KO'd once. He's only been submitted once, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if I see Topuria being able to sub him or KO him. It might depend on what, like, Josh Emmett might look like fucking garbage. I could see Topuria, actually, this is how I could see Topuria finishing him. with a giant left hook to the body. After going up top with a big overhand right, instead of following up with the left hook to the head, he'll follow up to the body. And I could see him hurting Josh Emmett like that, because Yair Rodriguez kind of showed us that due to that dude's massive weight cuts, he is a little susceptible there. And he's got a very wide torso, so there's a lot of target. So I could see Topuria hurting him to the body, finishing him off on the ground after that. And that's my pick. But if I was going to throw money on an underdog, Josh Emmett's looking pretty good right now. That's the end of this video. Like and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. I will see you at the next video. Bye-bye.